Hello students, welcome to Accounting 1329. This is Payroll and Business Tax Accounting. This is Dr. Mercado speaking, and this week we are going to begin a brand new chapter. This is chapter 4, which deals with income tax withholding. Now, like every week that we're covering new content, please make sure that you do read the chapter before you begin working on any of your assignments. This chapter has a lot of information that helps us understand better the topic of income tax withholding. In this chapter, it's going to help us explain the coverage under the federal income tax withholding law by determining the employer and employee relationship, the kinds of payments defined as wages, and the kinds of pre-tax salary reductions. We're also going to learn about the W-4 form. Something very important that we're going to be really practicing on is the computation of the amount of federal income tax to be withheld using the appropriate tax tables provided in your book. Okay, we're going to be using the percentage method, the wage bracket method, and alternative methods such as quarterly averaging or annualizing of wages. So there's a lot of calculations to help us determine the correct income tax withholding amount. In addition, we're going to learn about the purpose and the use of the Form W-2, along with many other important information. So it is super important that we read so we are familiar with the content of the chapter. Okay, I am not going to cover so much the content in my lectures. They're going to be more application based. So it is critical that you know what is going on in the chapter by reading it first. Okay, so let's get started. This is the first exercise that I'm going to be covering for you this particular week. This is problem 4-1A. So it says, Justin Matthews is a waiter at the Deluxe Lounge. In his first weekly pay in March, he earns $300 for 40 hours that he worked. So he's an hourly employee. He worked 40 hours and earned $300. Okay. In addition, he also reported tips for February to his employer of $500. So the employer is responsible for keeping a tally of their tips and then reporting it to their manager so the appropriate taxes can be levied on those tip earnings. Okay. And the employer withholds the appropriate taxes for the tips from his first pay in March. So the employee worked and earned $300. Now, during the month of February, he accumulated tips of $500, but he hasn't paid any taxes on those $500 of tips. Now, the employee has informed his employer, you know what, I made $500 of tips during the month of February. The employer now is aware of it and now is going to deduct the appropriate taxes for those tips from the paycheck that he's going to get this week for $300, okay? So not only does the employee going to pay taxes on the $300 of earnings, but they're also going to pay taxes on the $500 of tips that they had accumulated. Okay. Now they're asking us to calculate his net take-home pay, assuming that the employer is withholding federal income tax using the wage bracket method, married filing jointly, Social Security taxes, and state income tax of 2%. Okay. So before we begin anything, we need to identify, well, what is this employee's gross pay? Okay. And the problem says that the employee earned $300, okay, for his 40 hours of work. So his gross pay is $300. Okay. Now from those $300 that he has earned, we're going to deduct taxes. The first thing we're going to deduct is federal income tax. Okay. And we are going to deduct federal income tax on $800. Okay, why on $800? That is the $300 of wages plus the $500 of tips. Okay, so this employee is going to have to pay taxes on both those things, the wages and the tips. So we are going to withhold federal income tax on $800. Now they're telling us to use the wage bracket method. Okay, the wage bracket method is very simple because all you have to do is you're going to go, this is your ebook. Towards the end of your ebook, after chapter 7, you've got tax tables. All of your tax tables are listed. Okay, if you go there, the first part is your percentage method calculations, which we'll be using later on. But then you have your percentage method, which is what they're asking us to use. Okay. Now, the employee is getting paid weekly. So you have to look for the table that says weekly payroll. Okay, so this one is daily, this one is monthly. Okay, you need to go to the table that says weekly payroll. Okay, so you're going to go to the weekly payroll table, which is because this employee is getting paid on a weekly basis, and you have to locate the information that you need. Just make sure that you do locate the table correctly. You see, you have weekly, and then you have bi-weekly, you have semi-monthly, so you have tables for each of those. So what I went ahead and did, because these numbers are so small, I went ahead and I copied the table over. Okay, just the section that I needed. Okay, so I'm saying here that we're gonna have to pay taxes on $800 of wages, 300 of your regular wages plus 500 of tips. So I am looking for the 800, and this is for weekly, and we are looking at married finally joined. So this is the area that we're gonna be looking at. What you're gonna do is you're gonna locate your $800 figure. Okay. So if you notice here, you have between 790 and 800, and then between 800 and 810. Okay, you will always pick up the second figure. Like for example, here it says from $790 to $800, you're gonna pay $32. From $800 to $810, you're gonna pay $33. Okay, because the amount is 800, you're gonna pick up the second figure, which is between 800 and 810, the second tier. Okay, so always look for that second tier if available. Okay, and the amount of federal income tax that we're going to be withholding is $33. Okay, and remember, the reason I'm not picking up the first one is because that $800 figure is towards the very end. It says at least 790, but less than 800. So it's less. It's 799.99, whatever the case might be. Okay, so that does not apply. That first tier does not apply because it has to be less than 800. Our number is 800, so then it has to be at least 800 but less than 810. So we're picking up that second tier because it has to be the 800 mark. Okay, so that gives me $33, and this is a deduction, so I'm going to put it in parentheses because I am going to deduct this from the employee's paycheck. Okay. Okay. And let me format this with 2 decimals. Okay. The next thing we have to deduct, it says here Social Security taxes. Okay. Social Security. And the first one we have is OASDI. Okay. So for OASDI, we know that we're going to pay taxes on $800. That's the tips plus the wages. And my OASDI rate from prior chapters, we know it's 6.2%. Okay, so this you should know by now that OASDI tax is 6.2%. I'm going to multiply 800 times 6.2%. That gives me $49.60. Okay, and once again, I'm going to enter it in parentheses because this is a deduction from your wages. Next, we have Social Security, HI. So I'm going to have that $800 times my HI rate is 1.45%. And let's see what that gives us. That is 800 times 1.45%. That gives me $11.60. So I'm going to deduct $11.60. Okay. Next, we have our state income tax. Okay. According to the problem, our state income tax is 2%. So I'm going to get my total, which is the 800 wages and tips times 2. And then that's going to give me times 2%, $16. Okay. Now I can calculate my net pay. This is how much the employee is going to take home from that $300 paycheck after paying taxes on both the $300 of wages and the $500 of tips. So the employee is going to take home, let's see, drum roll here, $189.80. So the employee earned $300 of wages. he is going to pay taxes, Social Security taxes, federal income tax, and state income tax on the regular pay of $300 plus the tips he earned during the month of February. So by deducting all of the taxes that he needs to pay, we're going to get left with a paycheck of $189.80. That is the take-home pay. Okay. So that is how we calculate our net pay. And in this case, we're deducting three things: federal income tax, Social Security tax, and state income tax. Okay. So that is how we calculate this. The key here is to incorporate the tips into your tax calculations. Okay. Because we have to pay taxes on tips as well. Okay. So that is basically it. Be very careful on your wage bracket. Make sure you have a ruler or something straight so you can pick up the correct figure, and make sure that you read carefully. This is married filing joint. This is married filing joint. If it has other information, make sure that you read it so you can use the correct information, the correct table. We have married, head of household, or single. Okay, so it just depends what the problem tells you is what column you're going to be using. Okay, so just be very careful when you're reading your tax tables. So that is basically it for exercise 4-1A. Okay, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, thank you.